Good morning. So you are a school leader, whether you're a principal, you are an assistant principal, you're a superintendent, deputy superintendent, you are the dean, you are in any position of responsibility and authority within your school or your school system. What do you do when life gets hard? When life gets hard, when things are not moving the way you want it to move, when you feel pressure coming from all around you. Sometimes the pressure might not be something that's coming from the outside, but it's coming from within. What do you do? Let's talk about it.
When they see me, they know that every day when I'm breathing, it's for us to go farther. You know, every time I speak, I want the truth to come out. You know what I'm saying? Every time I speak, I want to shiver. You know, I don't want them to be like, they know what I'm going to say because it's polite. They know what I'm going to say. And even if I get in trouble, you know what I'm saying? Ain't that what we're supposed to do? I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us. We might not be the ones, but let's not be selfish, and because we're not going to change the world, let's not talk about how we should change it. I don't know how to change it, but I know if I keep talking about how dirty it is out here, somebody going to clean.
And now he's been promoted. His job, principal.
So I would say this. Some of the most insecure, self-doubting, self-deprecating people that I know are leaders. I know this goes counter to what we're trained to believe about leaders. But the fact of the matter is, it is something that is true. If you listen to this, and you are or have ever been in a position of leadership, at some point in time, you experience doubt. That imposter syndrome, right? Especially in the beginning. Am I good enough? Am I supposed to be here? What if they made a mistake? What if what they say they believe about me is not real or it's not true, and they're just waiting for me to mess up so I can be proved to be unworthy? Or you're facing something that may seem unsurmountable. In the midst of it all, you start to question yourself and start to ask yourself, like, why did I take this role? Why did they put me here? Then you start going through all the negative self-talk. Maybe this is not meant to be. Maybe I need to just, admit that I'm not the right person, or I'm just not capable of handling this. So, if you're telling me as a leader, as someone who has been put in charge of other people, whether it's just one person, and you've never experienced this, then you are like miraculously made and amazingly perfect. Like, I don't know what else to say. But I can tell you, I've experienced it. I've gone through my phases where where I've lost sleep, like for days, where I've walked into my building or walked into the presence of my team and had an anxiety, like deep anxiety, where at some point in time I started to believe, like, I know for a fact that I'm faking it. Even when I wasn't faking it, I'd be like, I know I've been pretending like I know what I'm doing. Because it's easier. Those thoughts and those feelings are much easier than you being able to truly attack, to truly commit yourself into the work that you're doing and being fearless. Because being fearless requires that you are willing to fully accept all consequences, all outcomes, and saying, no matter what happens, I take full responsibility for the decision, for the actions, for the mistakes, for all those minor errors, for those huge blunders, as this ship, as this bus, as this train, as these 2 feet are moving forward towards the identified goal, as I'm doing everything to accomplish the mission, as I'm doing everything to reach the completion of that vision, of that picture, that grand master painting, that at the end, everyone's going to look at it and say, wow, that happened. Wow, your team, you did that. But however, the process is not easy. So I'll frame this within the language of what I know a lot of school leaders are going through right now. A lot of teams are going through right now. We are in this season within our schools of when we know that what we do between now, this is the end of January, all the way through whenever our state exams are, those assessments that are used to gauge whether or not you, your team, but specifically you as leader, have actually accomplished what you set off to accomplish. You know, here in New York State it's for the third through 8th grade, is that, you know, math and ELA assessments. You add the science assessments for the 8th grade as well. Then when you start stepping into the high school space, you have the Regents exams, you know, or whatever assessments that you utilize to establish the measurements of your success for the year. And when we talk about success, some people just look at it as raw scores. If my school can reach these scores, show these numbers, then I've succeeded. Or if we can grow this much, then we have succeeded. And for a lot of people, it becomes a huge stressor. Every decision, every move made is around those numbers, and those numbers only. And when you have that level of pressure, you may not say it, but things become that much harder. Because at some point in time, those numbers are going to be used to judge you as a person. At least that's what it feels like for a lot of people. Everything that I'm doing right now is going to be used to ascertain whether or not I have been worthy, or if I am worthy to be called a leader, to be called the principal, to be called the superintendent, to be called whatever it is. It might come down to just being the department head. You might be the department head of your math team at your school. And the pressure that's being put on the superintendent, that's being put on the principal, that's being put on the instructional assistant principals, and then comes down to the department head. We have to close this number gap. We have to blah, 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 blah. And it trickles down. So everybody feels pressure. And some people might say it's normal. This is how it is. But I question whether it's healthy, if it's psychologically healthy for everyone who's involved, and most especially the student. For me, and it took me some time to get here, because in the beginning I truly fell for that. I made it. Everything I did everything that I did as an aspiring leader and as a leader and every level of my career so far has been about the achievement gap. And the achievement gap has been correlated to the numbers. What is your school's proficiency score or rating or whatever? That had been my focus for so long, until a number of years ago. I was at a school where I had a very good graduation rate. And as a school that I had taken over, and I was like, whoa, it was like a 92% graduation rate. That's pretty awesome. In a country, in a space where there's a lot of schools that have 50 and 60, to be 90%. And I was like, whoa. Then my curiosity kind of like peaked, and I said, let me take a deeper dive. What does a 90% graduation rate look like? What does that student look like? So I started, going into individual students' scores and record. And what I saw was, yes, you are graduating, but your assessment scores put you at, the lower tier of students as far as performance is concerned. When you're scoring in the 60s out of 100, okay, then we look at grades in the classroom. Kids who have, interestingly enough, have scores that are classroom score grades that are in the 80s and 90s, 100s, but they're scoring in the state assessments, in the 60s. Didn't make any sense to me, because the kids who were scoring in the low 60s in their classroom grades were scoring the same as the kids who were scoring in the 80s and 90s. And I was like, how's that possible? Shouldn't there be a correlation between you doing really well in your day-to-day learning and your assessments? Shouldn't that show itself in the final, assessment for the year that's given by the state? If you're a 90 student, shouldn't you at least be 80s or above? That's not what I was seeing. As a matter of fact, I saw a kid who actually was barely passing. They scored in the 90s in the state assessment. So that was kind of like weird. What's going on here? Because typically you should see high grades, high scores. But I was seeing high grades, low scores, with a few outliers of low grades, high scores, very few outliers. It didn't make any sense to me. Then my next question was, okay, what's happening? Over the past couple of years, where are these kids going after they're done with high school? A lot of them were dropping out. I want to say about 40% of the kids who would start college would be out of college after their first semester to a year, never returning back. Another big chunk of them would drop out by the time they completed their sophomore year. To I want to say about 20% or so of those kids were actually finishing college or any kind of post-secondary training or education. So again, I'm asking myself, what's going on here? These numbers don't make any sense. So my mission switched over from having numbers that make the school look good or made me, quote unquote, look good, to saying, how do I make sure that our children are prepared, our young people are prepared for their future, not for my present? When I make the work about my scores, my school's overall performance right here and now, then I am creating a very dangerous space for these children that I have taken the responsibility of making sure that they're properly educated for the future. So, like I said, many years ago, I stopped making it about, their scores, which pretty much meant I made my life much harder. Because no matter what the vision was for the betterment of my students, I'm still being judged in the here and now based on their test scores. so I could push to do whatever it needs to do whatever needs to happen to make sure I get the scores that I want, regardless of what the impact of the education is on the lives of the children. Or I can say, I want it all. But prioritizing the learning and development of these young people so that they make it to the next level and are able to perform at a level that says that I'm ready to do my part on this planet, on this earth, as a citizen, as a leader, as a husband, as a wife, or as a son, as a daughter, as just a contributing member of society. That is the work. But however, it often conflicts with the outcomes that are needed to state that your school, that you as a leader are doing your job. But the outcomes that I'm focused on, you don't get to see till down the road. I have students from years ago that I still keep track of. And whenever I speak to them, their eloquence, their intelligence, the work that they're doing, pharmacists, therapists, teachers, business owners, engineers, quite a few engineers, lawyers, tech executives, all kids from the Bronx, from Kingsbridge to South Bronx to Co-op, all kids from some of arguably the lowest performing communities educationally in New York City, and maybe even in the country. But these kids are performing on such a high level because I took the risk of focusing on their future and saying if we poured completely in creating a space for our students to thrive and develop cognitive skills, the ability to read and write and speak intelligently and assess what they're reading and show those high levels of critical thinking skills, that we're preparing them for their future. So whether it's college, careers, whatever it is, they have the foundational skills to go on and be successful. That was the focus. Because we believed, or at least I believed, if it was grounded in that, all these assessments are not summative. They become formative. Every state exam is formative. Every Regents exam is formative. It's helping us to formulate and assess and push our kids even harder and pulling them deeper into their learning and their studying, giving us data to say, hey, this is just as we have to make. And the scores ended up giving us what we needed, but the experience ended up giving our students what was necessary for them to thrive. I'm saying all this to motivate you, whoever's listening right now. And I used state exams and assessments, because we're in that season, as the foundation of this particular podcast, in talking about, what happens when life gets hard in what we do. And my response to you is to keep your eyes on the higher goal. Remove your thought process from the foundational stuff. I'm saying that's the wrong word. The low-hanging fruit. And that's why I look at it. State exams and all this, they're low-hanging fruit. We have to do it. Trust me, my team is formulating and preparing our kids to be able to show what they know and not be tripped up by all that is wrong with the state exams and stuff like that, and the biases we see and the questioning and things of that nature, preparing them for that. But we are not doing test prep during a school day. We're assessing what the kids know based on what they need to know to be able to move forward and be stronger as mathematicians, as readers, as writers, and to be able to, even in our case, knock out some of their high school region scores, exams early. Right now I have 6th and 7th graders who we're contemplating whether or not they should sit for the regions. Like, their skill set is so high that we're like, do we really need to see if this 6th or 7th grader might be able to perform high enough? And then what do we do with that? What do we do with that score? What do I do with that region score? Nothing. If that 7th grader gets a 80 or 90 on region score, wonderful. My concern now is, what do I do with them? How do I keep pushing their thinking? How do I offer that kid geometry? Do I pay a teacher for 0 period to work with that kid one-on-one to make sure we keep pushing and growing them? Or am I just grabbing scores to make myself look good, to make the school look good? I want the school to look good, but I want that child to have a great future, because we poured into them more than they could have ever imagined or expected. No matter what you're going through, whether it's the day-to-day of what's happening in your school, testing season, culture issues, maybe it's in your personal life, keep your eyes on the ultimate, highest level outcome. And that outcome should be all about, how does it make you better? How does it make your school better? How do you reach a place where, when the smoke clears, you can say, the fire that I walked through, the storm that I walked through, yes, I might be smoky, I might be wet, I might be bruised and battered, but I know that after coming through that, I am better, I'm stronger. Gosh darn it, I might be a little bit more invincible. That is the focus. A little tidbit of advice. The one thing that's worked for me is talking to people. Even as I'm doing this podcast, I'm putting myself out there in a way that I am listening to myself. I am motivating myself. I'm also seeing gaps in my own thinking that I know I need to go back and really dig deeper into. And how do I do that? I have mentors. I have coaches, even consultants, people, colleagues who are brilliant, that I say, hey, can I talk to you about this? What do you think about this? And they help me work through these things. I say this to teachers, I say this to all educators, I say it to all people. Don't live on an island. Do not live on an island. Put yourself in a position where you are constantly building and you're assessing. And sometimes you got to put yourself out there. Your fears, your failures, put it out there. Amidst people that you trust, who will pour into you and coach you and guide you, to where you need to be. I've been fortunate to be in a space where I know a lot of people, I'm so grateful to that. I know a lot of people who have a vested interest in what I do, and then I'm that for other people as well. Listen, I have people randomly that I don't even know who reach out to me, through social media and say, hey, can we talk? Hey, this is something I'm going through. What do you think? And my thing is this, I pour into them as well, because I've done that myself. And that's the most important thing in this work that we do. Life is going to get hard. The work is going to get hard. But don't live on an island. Make sure that you have the right people around you to pour into you, and that you're honest about what you're going through. Because again, nothing under the sun is new. Everything has happened at least once to somebody else. And there's a recording of that thing somewhere for you to reach out, to seek out and reach out to and use to assess your situation so that you can be better at what you do. And you can ultimately reach the highest levels of what you were meant to do. All right, guys. Uche Njoku. I got to run to the gym. Till next time. Peace.